Over the last 3 years in particular, but certainly before the election, we heard a lot of things. We heard men and women stand up and make a lot of statements. Those persons who have known me, and certainly many of you only have really gotten to know about Alan Chastanet since I got involved in elections. I cut my teeth in Sufur. It was a baptismal by fire for me, because weeks after being launched as the candidate for Sufur, we had Hurricane Thomas. And I'm very happy that I went to Sufur, and I'm very happy for the welcome that a lot of people gave me when I went to Sufur. I was very saddened, not because of the despair that Hurricane Thomas caused, and it was not just physical devastation, but I remember that several people died during Hurricane Thomas. And I also, the people in Mini, people in Font-Saint-Jacques, who, when they went to bed at night and would hear any rumblings, would think that they were reliving the hurricane again because of the landslides. But as I got to know the people in Sufur a lot better, I started seeing something that I didn't like. And there was a darkness in their souls. So much so that I had a campaign song that was written called Time to Believe. Now, the story of Alan Chastanet and Sufur, I want people to really take their time to go and dig deeper into it, because you will then understand my choice of songs when I ever come on the campaign. It was a Jimmy Cliff song that was, action speaks louder than words. And all my life, I've never been a person to go out and make all kinds of promises to people that I didn't think that I could deliver on. Very, very important to me that people have confidence in my word. I'd like to think that even without being elected in Sufur, and certainly at the time the United Workers' Party was in office, and despite Hurricane Thomas, I never allowed that to be an excuse, because I think it would have been very easy to have just said, go and help some people, help them fix their homes, and that would have been sufficient. But as I said to you, I saw a darkness in people's soul. Sufur has a very important historical place in St. Lucia. In fact, whenever the French were in government, Sufur was the capital. We speak about the most ferocious freedom fighters in St. Lucia, and we think of Sufur. So it's a place that had tremendous pride. It's a place that if there was ever a part of St. Lucia that could truly be a republic, meaning fully independent, it would be Sufur. Some of the best hotels in the world. Cocoa, rich history. And yet, people weren't feeling that. Because when you went around Sufur in the town, it was extremely depressing. So, putting lights in the playing field was not about just looking to develop sports in Sufur. It was about the young men and women who were no longer in secondary school and were now working, and there was nowhere to go and play at nighttime. As we say, there was no place to take a sweat. Hummingbird Beach which was really the only place that Sufurians themselves could have gone and swam. That's where all the dirty water was being dumped. There was no bathroom to go to. We talk about our beach. So Hummingbird Beach project was not about just putting bathroom facilities for locals, but also creating jobs. So during the week when the tourists came, that persons could get a job and we could bring the tourist to that beach. Why? The same water taxi fellas from Barron's Drive. And I used to always tease them and say that they were going to find white marlins, which was the tourist in Castries. And instead of bringing them to Sugar Beach or bringing them to Chastanet, I said, bring them to Hummingbird Beach. Bring them to where your girlfriends, your family members, and your community are working. Make them buy a Heineken beer from there instead of buying it from the other hotels. So there is an old saying, they say you make lemonade out of lemons. A win-win situation. So on the weekends now, when they went and other people from the community went to the beach, they now had a facility of their own, proper beach facilities. That was long before we went ahead and did the facilities at VG Beach. As we speak today, Rodney Bay, which is the prime beach for up north, where's the bathroom? Where's the bathroom? These are things I want us to not just skip over. If we don't, and I'm deviating, but it's important, if we don't integrate tourism into our way of life, then tourism will become the enemy of the people. Because if we're going to do things only for tourists, we will resent tourism. And tourists actually want to come here and be with us. When people say, oh, Alan Chastanet doesn't understand that. When I built Coco Palm, I didn't build it on the beach. I built it off the beach. And I built it as a place where West Indians, both in the Caribbean region and in the diaspora, would come and feel at home. And that the restaurant was not built in the hotel, so you didn't have to walk through the lobby to get to the hotel. Little things. And I wanted that when tourists came and they went to the bar and they went to the restaurant, they met other West Indians who had family members here and also met locals. Because the value of meeting somebody and having a St. Lucian or a person who knows St. Lucia to take them to places that they would have never gone as a tourist creates memories that they will never forget. When we opened up the first media trip I brought here, specifically handpicked, I remember the gentleman found a guy with a boat, and the guy took him down to Canaries, took him to his home, and he went back and wrote one of the most fabulous articles because he had an experience he could have never gotten anywhere else in the world. So Sufur ought to be the capital of village tourism. An opportunity for what? Guest houses and Airbnb. Where did they go to the beach? Hummingbird Beach. And it was to build up the waterfront. And Herod did an amazing job with the bus shelter and the market. and a playing field with a track. And why is that important? So when tourists now come and walk around St. Lucia, they see a sense of pride and they go, wow, these people, they're good. I don't want to give out secrets, but I know that it doesn't matter what you do for the Labour Party, they can't finish it. As Dominic said, we left them the Millennium Highway, they can't finish it. You left them St. Jude's, they can't finish it. You left them HIA, they can't finish it. You left them village tourism, they can't finish it. You left them the Castries market, they can't finish it. You left them roads, they couldn't finish it. You left them an economy that was growing and robust and was the leader of the entire Caribbean. I'm going to exclude Guyana, because Guyana never had any problems. In fact, Guyana got oil. So Guyana grew by 20% in 21. We grew by 12. The next year, Guyana grew by 30 and we grew by 18. Nobody else was in double digits. That's the plan of the United Workers' Party. Village tourism is an opportunity for us to integrate tourism into our way of life and to celebrate our culture. So, taking a jazz festival that was no longer a jazz festival. So let's put that straight. It had become an international music festival. But it had become so big that there was no space for the tourist to stay because the rooms were being occupied by the production people and all of the artists themselves. How do you justify paying $1 million for an artist? Where are you going to get the return on that investment? So when the Labour Party wants to come now and fool you and say to you, Soleil. What was Soleil? Soleil is just a summer festival. Just think of it as a business perspective for a moment. That instead of having one festival in the month of May, that if you know that the size of a good festival that maximizes the room sales, that there's a capacity where it's a number of people where we can host them, so it's not disrupting the life of St. Lucia. If we can get about 1,500 to 2,000 tourists to come to an event, we're good. So instead of having one festival, have 5 over the summer. May, June, July, August, September, October. I never understood why we treated our own culture so badly. So when I had the opportunity, when I came in as the Minister of Tourism, and Sir John, I convinced him to increase the allocation of tourism, the first thing I did was committed $1 million for Carnival. And that's from how much? $100,000. Think of it. That's what we used to give Carnival. $100,000. And I said, the biggest festival that we should have in St. Lucia should be Carnival. What made our jazz festival unique was because originally it was jazz. But acoustic music will not work at Pigeon Island. It gets lost. Just look over the years, every time that we've had an acoustic event there, it doesn't sell out. The first time that we really made an impact at Pigeon Island, I don't even know if people remember, was George Benson. And a couple years later was Santana. And then it became UB40. And what happens every year, everybody wants a bigger artist. Because the festival is not being measured on its economic impact or the publicity, but we are measuring it by the size of the artist that we can get. Wrong measurement. And then when we started making Carnival successful, and we showed that you can take your music form and make it to an international standard, we were so lucky. The creativity and the excellence of St. Lucia and the potential of St. Lucia came out in a music form called Dennery Segment. And people overseas were recognizing the brilliance of Dennery Segment even before we did. And foreign artists wanted to come down and play with them. So the goal was to take Carnival and have your traditional Carnival for 1 week, but give Dennery Segment its own week and use it as an opportunity to lure international people here to play with our artist. It was under our innovation and thinking that we put Teddyson John and Minel on stage with international artists. Because before then, all of our local artists were playing first when there was nobody there. We forget that? And we wanted to reverse it around, but at the same time still give people value for what they were doing. So when I say to you that action speaks louder than words, it also means you must have a vision and an idea of where you're going to go. You must have the capacity to do it. So as the director of tourism, we started the Jazz Festival. Was it a fluke for Alan Chastanet? When I went to Air Jamaica, we made even a bigger festival, the Air Jamaica Jazz and Blues Festival. We did a thing called Islands in the Park, where we brought up now on the reverse side, we brought up all the Caribbean musicians to play at Prospect Park in New York. We played in Boston, we played in Atlanta, we played in Washington, D.C., exposing our music and our form. So, succeeding and executing have always been part of who I am. And it's never been about Alan Chastanet. It's about finding the talent, giving them confidence, and inspiring them to success, to a much bigger goal. I don't want to get into the analysis of Julian Alfred, who I remember meeting for the first time. I think she was about 17. She was just finishing up her last year in Jamaica. And I excuse the persons watching us on TV, but as I go around to my constituents, not only in Micoud South, but all throughout the length and breadth of St. Lucia, I speak about the fire in your belly. Okay? It's not about saying something. It's not about wishing something. It's about knowing. When I met this young girl, the thing that impressed me about her was she was focused. And she believed in herself and her dream. It wasn't a dream. She already had visualized it. And she was prepared to make the sacrifices to do it. And we'll discuss that at another time. But I want to say to her that we are all proud of her. She's represented St. Lucia and done something that no other St. Lucian has achieved. First medalist, and at the first time, a gold medal for St. Lucia. And anybody who wants to contest how incredible that achievement is, let us just look so far at the medal count at the Olympics in track and field. There's only 2 gold medalists from the Caribbean. Ms. Lafon, and I want to congratulate her, from Dominica in the triple jump. And Julian Alfred. The traditional countries, Jamaica and Trinidad, have a couple of medals, but they're bronze. And that's not to be demeaned in any way. That's a hell of an achievement, just winning in a medal. But here it is, our own. And so what we should be focusing on right now is praying, supporting Julian, because she has another important race ahead, which is the 200 meters. She's going to be competing against an American girl that is very talented and, more importantly, has specialized in the 200s. It means she did not run in the 100. So it is a rare feat. We take it for granted sometimes, but it's a rare feat for a person to win both the 100 and the 200. Let's not take that for granted. And she's already qualified to go into the semifinals. We should, as a country, be behind her and focus on that. Who did what or didn't do what is irrelevant at this point. So I'm a man of my word. I'm a man of action. And I specifically played that piece from Philip Pierre that he said before the elections. Because that is what Labour Party is. Say and do anything to get into power. But once they're in power, and history shows, they don't know what to do with it. They've never succeeded. Ever. I don't know that I've ever seen it as bad as it is today, and I'll discuss that a little bit. I mean, Guy brought up a lot of issues. Dominic brought up a lot of issues. Vincent brought up a lot of issues. That those things by themselves, I have to say to all of you, those things by themselves warrant this country shutting down the country and asking them to do exactly what Philip Pierre said. Leave. Don't come and even begin to try to tell us that you have the capacity to run this country. There's no evidence there to say that. So let's start off with what we know. That this government does not understand and does not support or embrace democracy. Because every single time that somebody opens their mouth in this country to either oppose or to ask a question, we get the same answers. Kill it. Not kill it from a murder perspective. Kill it, it means shut up. Don't go there. None of your business. I need to ask Galaxy for permission. And then now over this weekend, history is repeating itself. When Labour could not take the pressure in the first year of Sky FM, what they did? They kill it. They told it to shut up. They killed it. And we said nothing. A minister gets elected and says he's going to use his power to seek revenge on people because now is his turn. We said nothing. Now that same minister this weekend says that he wants to sue Philip Martinez, knock himself out. But when he now wants to sue the media of St. Lucia for bringing us an opposing view of what is going on to inform ourselves, you want to take them to court? You want to shut them down? Are we now going to say nothing? We cannot. Our democracy in this country is hanging by a sliver. We just had elections in Venezuela. I'm not there, I don't know, but I see there's a lot of controversy. But I do know that if a government controls all the powers of the country, then it's going to be very difficult to beat them even at the polls. So the police, the army, the judiciary system, all the civil servants, everybody. So when you hear things like the polling division closed down, they will stop the count, not difficult to believe. And we see that the Labour Party is attempting to do the same thing in this country. And we are saying nothing. What are we going to do? Wait until Labour Party is in full control? The police are supposed to be there to protect us from criminals and to defend the democracy of our country and to defend the rule of law of this country. So when you take a man and you promote him 4 ranks to then find out that that man has issues and you want to do nothing, and that when now the investigation comes in, you want to stop it? And we're going to sit there and say nothing? A judge recuses himself, claims that there was political interference. Not my words, not the words of anybody else. He came to his court. He sat in his court, and that is what he said. And what happens? They move him to Grenada. No explanation. And after months, when we wrote a letter to the Chief Justice, I won't even tell you what she said to us. Nobody says nothing. There's supposed to be an independence from politicians and the judiciary. When you break that your only opportunity to seek justice and the truth and protection is through the courts, and when now all of a sudden you have to question the independence of the courts? My people, the acting Chief Justice of St. Lucia is the former deputy political leader of the Labour Party and former deputy prime minister of St. Lucia, and we have nothing to say. I don't want to deprive anybody of anything, but you're telling me of all the people that you can get, that you want to put a person that is a former politician, and particularly a politician of a different party? And we say nothing? We have nothing to say? The government comes to Parliament and tells you that they're going to introduce a 2.5% levy for health care and for security. In the same budget, we pointed out that there's no increase in the allocation of money for health care and security. That was the first sign. Months later, we find out that the levy was put on not for health care and education and security, but it was put on in order for the government to get a loan. And the few people that said something, they said it under their breath. What? You meet them and they pull you on the side. Mr. Chastanet, can you believe they did that? That's a betrayal. That's the same as somebody warning you. And we have nothing to say. The government accused my government of borrowing. Millions and millions of dollars. For 3 years, while we were rebuilding the economy, we did it. We only borrowed $100 million a year. In the year of COVID, the economy contracted by 20%. We borrowed $300 million to just keep the government afloat. They came and told you all, oh, we're borrowing the money to do roads because we want to give fresh start. And that guy Joseph and we all that, we're so callous that that's what we wanted to do. Where were the civil servants that were getting paid their salary? When I asked the civil servants to just, not to take a pay cut, not a pay cut, to forego their part of their salary, and I will give it to them in the form of bonds and give them the money in a year's time, and I will pay them interest, tax-free. You know what they told me? No. Did I curse? Did I get vexed? I paid them their money. The one concession they gave us. And I want us to understand this very carefully. The policy of my government towards the civil servants of this country is that your contracts should be negotiated 3 years in advance, not 3 years after. And let me explain to you what that means. If you get paid your salary 3 years after, then the banks and everybody else don't know what that salary increase is and they don't give you credit for it. So you have to wait. And more often than not, the solution to that problem is, I don't want to give any secrets out to the CSA, but it is what happens. We renegotiate a fixed fee. So I'm going to give you $1,000 as a one-time thing, and we negotiate something else down the road. Okay? So by negotiating your salary 3 years in advance, is even if you've not gotten your salary increase and you go to the bank, because it's a contract amount, the bank recognizes now that you're getting paid more money. Now that to me sounds like something a political party that favors the workers would do. Yes? And so how it is that the United Workers' Party is the first party to do that? And not Labour Party. So here it is now. The economy is recovering, revenue is recovered. Where's the CSC in their negotiations? Because I have to imagine now, a new contract is due. They're not even talking to them. Not even talking to them. The Labour Party now has turned around and in 3 years borrowed more money than the United Workers' Party borrowed in 5 years. And they have lied to you. And you have to ask this question, why have they borrowed that money? Who do you think has to pay it? The people. The now Prime Minister said that his government would not tolerate corruption. He actually said that the perception of corruption was even worse. And he said that there's no way that a Labour Party government would have any minister that there was the perception of corruption about. Now we all know who he was referring to. My good friend, Guy Joseph. But today, that same Prime Minister, now that he's in office, didn't even wait for something to happen. He decided that he was going to recruit people who had perceptions of corruption. So he decided to bring Richard Frederick into his cabinet. A person, not anybody ordinary, The Labour Party, including Philip Pierre, had alleged that he was the worst thing to happen in politics in St. Lucia, that he was the most dangerous politician in St. Lucia, that he was the most corrupt politician in St. Lucia. Not our words, Labour Party. That's what they said about Richard Frederick. They went as far to go to Barbados to complain about him, and they took away his visa. And when they took away his visa, the Labour Party said that we had to take him out of the cabinet. He was not fit to be in the cabinet because he didn't have a US visa. The courts said that he is a liar because the evidence that he gave, the statements he gave, the judge said, you lied. Repeatedly, we've seen that Richard Frederick is involved in every scandal that we can think of in St. Lucia. And after he became minister, the first thing that he did was to recruit somebody who has perception. He brought him in as attaché. And if it wasn't bad enough, the prime minister said, you know what? I want you in my ministry. So he's in the prime minister's ministry. Joachim Henry, Wayne Gerard, I'm not scared to call him out. Ernest Hilaire. From the first day, we didn't even have to wait to see what y'all were going to do because it's only gotten worse since then, not better. So I played that tape because I want us to know that the Labour Party has already given us a prescription. So they said, if you have people who have suspected, not even to say you have proof, in this case we have proof, suspected, they should be good. So what they're doing there? You have two ministers now that we know after the fact were involved in blackmail. My people, blackmail. That means that these two people went out and worked with the young ladies, paid them in order to set up a minister. Not once, but twice. The information has come out in a story and we have nothing to say. Nothing. We have nothing to say. And yet the Prime Minister said that if anybody was fingered or if there's any suspicion that they should go. We talk about hypocrisy and the double standard of the Labour Party. That's what they're good at. So when now we see a minister, Richard Frederick, who already none of us believe, but yet too many people still believe him. So it's one thing to tell me you watch Richard's show for entertainment. But it's another thing when people want to come and quote Richard Frederick as if anything that he says is true. So here it is, last week that he said what? He said he was wrong. Fresh Start is a great company. And Fresh Start's the best company to finish off the tavern. And he said, and eventually Shock. Wait a second, I'm not done yet, And he said so much so that he's prepared to eat his own vomit. But here's my problem. And Guy touched on it. The vomit that I want Richard Frederick to eat is not his vomit. I want him to eat the vomit of the people who have to pay now a higher price for the land. That's the vomit I want him to eat. What you do in your home, how many times you vomit and how many times you eat it, that's your business. But you stop a project and where people were going to get the land for $9 and now they're going to have to pay $14. You want to say you're going to eat your vomit? No. Say sorry to the people. Show them that you really mean it, and you pay for the mistake. And I want to know, after they start off Shock and Tavern, are you going to let Fresh Start now finish the Rodney Bay Road? You said that there were volets. They said there was corruption, all kinds of things. Said y'all didn't know. We now know that that's a lie. How are you going to repay the people for the pain that we've gone through and driving through that road? How are you going to repay for all of the inconvenience and lost time? And if the project was supposed to be for $15 million, you've already paid the contractor now $21 million. And now you have to go and pay another contractor to do it. I think we should demand that Richard Frederick and Stephenson King pay the money. And there's a precedence for that. I want the civil servants to know that. Because if you don't count the money right, the person they make pay for it is you. So the same thing should apply to the ministers that went and stopped the projects. You lied to the people of St. Lucia. You pay. Don't come and tell me that you're going to eat your own vomit. Don't come and tell me that you're sorry. That's not good enough. The St. Jude's that Fresh Start was building. Who's going to eat the vomit on that? So when Guy Joseph was telling you what's taking place at OKEU, how bad do you think it is at St. Jude's, at the stadium? Think. And you know what makes it worse is the loyalty that the people in the South have had for the Labour Party. Labrie has never voted against Labour. Vieux Fort North has never voted against Labour. And Vieux Fort South, the majority of times, vote for Labour, the vast majority. Again, I'm going to tell you, Musa is the Minister of Health. Kenny Anthony is the former Prime Minister. And Alva Baptist, a senior person. You won Miku North. And that is how you're treating the people in the South? And the people in the South say, nothing. But you see, I understand something. The reason why the Labour Party does not want to finish the box at St. Jude's is because they don't even know how to run the box at OKEU. They're scared of boxes. I want you to listen, because this is not mépris. Because you have to listen sometimes to what people tell you. Because in the words that they use, they're actually telling you something. I never understood where the term poorest of the poor came. It's a strange thing to say, right? The little houses were not just for poor people, but they were for the... And as time went by, all of a sudden, I understood. 3 years later, I now understood what the poorest of the poor is. The intention of the Labour Party is to make everybody in St. Lucia the poorest of the poor. But understand why. By making everybody the poorest of the poor, then the standard of house that they build in Dennery makes sense. Not finishing the box, but going back to the old St. Jude's starts to make sense. Not wanting to build a modern airport terminal, but wanting to go back to the old terminal makes sense. Not fixing up the roads. Because if you're the poorest of the poor, what do you need roads for, guys? Now, don't laugh at me, you know. What I'm telling you is serious business, my people. Think of it. Why would a government put a 2.5% tax on when we were still recovering from COVID and the world had inflation? Why would the government not reduce the price of gas? Don't you think that any government that wanted to put you first or cared about anybody, the moment they could have reduced the price of gas, they would have done it? Don't you think that they would have reduced cooking gas? You think they would have allowed the price of bread to go up? $1 now buys 2 loaves. It used to buy 4. So what are they doing? They're making all of us the poorest of the poor. Every policy, the breakdown in crime, is so that you don't want to leave your house. Tell me what crime is doing to Vieux Fort Town. Is the Vieux Fort Town bustling? Are people making money? They're even destroying, well, not destroying, they have destroyed bananas. They're destroying the agricultural sector. And so by making you the poorest of the poor, it's to make sure that you cannot say anything. Because the day is coming where you will not be able to survive without government. And you have a government that has shown you that their priorities are for the comrades. Now the comrade can be you, you know. The comrade can be me. I can become a comrade. I only have to agree to one thing. Loyalty. And I have to kiss the ring. So whatever the big man says, that's what the truth is. If you agree to that, you're good to go. You're a comrade. And you will get to go to the Olympics. And you'll get the contracts. Because they don't have to go through the systems anymore. You can't win anything in this country on merit. You have to be a comrade. And by keeping all of us poor is an opportunity of controlling everything in St. Lucia. Taxi drivers that used to make money for themselves, now it's 2.5% extra tax. Gas prices are up. How can they make any more money? And are they saying anything? Not a word. My people, we are in serious trouble in this country. Our democracy is being taken away from us right before our very eyes. And we have lulled ourselves into a false sense of security in forgetting how to fight. Daher Mall is what Richard didn't tell you. He told you that it was a bad deal. But the rent is $4 a square foot. So, let's do some math. You know I love numbers. If no government office has been moved into the Daher Mall, and that there are places that they're paying $8 a square foot rent, so they're paying both the $4 and paying the $8, what is the rent that government is paying? $12. Whereas if you move the rent away from the $8 and you put it into the $4, how much are you paying? $4. And yet they're telling you they're broke. Yet the hospital at OKU cannot get medicine. I had a friend of mine who went to St. Jude's last week. He knows who he is. He had a sore throat. It was more than a sore throat, so he knows who he is. So you tell me he went there, and the doctors were giving him some stuff, and eventually they told him he had to take some pills. There was no water available for him to take the pills. He had to send somebody to his car to get the bottle of water. I said, Gaston, you're making a joke. Don't come and tell me that nonsense. He said, I'm telling you the truth. So when you hear the stories now from the letter that the medical people sent, you have to believe it. It has never been this bad, and yet the letter has been out for almost a couple of days, and we have nothing to say. They told you that Don Lockerbie was a bad deal. We took $33 million from the Taiwanese, grant money, no loan. Don Lockerbie's company, not Don Lockerbie, his company got paid $1 million or $2 million for the consultancy. That's the same company, those of you who are watching cricket, ICC World Cup, the stadium that was built in New York. He built that stadium for $40 million in 100 days. And then they broke it down afterwards. Okay? World-class stadiums around the world. So for the $33 million, it paid his consultancy fee, and we built the Sufur facility, lights, AstroTurf football field, world-class track, best track in the world. You built Deriso, Miku, Denry. I mean, when you go to Denry, it's unbelievable to see the facility there. You built the Groselet Academy. The government now has taken $80 million from the NLA. So they got the NLA to borrow the $80 million. They only telling you where they spend the money, but you don't know how much. So the $80 million is gone. If you think that that is bad, and this is a government that tells you that they are for the youth, the NLA money is to be used to support young people in this country. To pay for sporting facilities, to pay for scholarships. Yes? The loan that NLA has to pay back is $800,000 a month for 15 years. I'm going to repeat that. $800,000 a month for 15 years. I want the young people here, I want the young people who are listening to the show, I want you to tell me, how much do you think $800,000 a month could do to support sports in St. Lucia? Or to support education in St. Lucia? $10 million a year for 15 years? That makes sense to all y'all? And so where did the money go? The Business Chamber of Commerce put out some notes in a newsletter. And it says, cost of doing business in St. Lucia continues to rise, says the Chamber of Commerce. Rising shipping costs and protracted delays, increased wage with limited time to adjust, and operations and services of the Inland Revenue Department have collapsed. It says that noting the rising shipping costs, protracted delays, and increased cost of doing business, it was further communicated that on the local front, a discussion has commenced on the issue of price of eggs and local meat products. The implementation of Article 164 may send some shocks through the system, as producers who have been purchasing feed from the non-OECS sources will have to pay the Article 164 duties, 50% on CARICOM and 100% on extra CARICOM feed. The response of farmers will determine the ultimate impact on the price of eggs. As to the impact, this is a business decision they will have to make after careful and thorough analysis, as any significant increases in the price of animal products, eggs and local meat products, will have an effect on demand and ultimately affect the profitability of farmers' operations. So the farming is already dying. Now it's going to die even further. Extraordinary Gazette. Meanwhile, the minimum wage of $1,126 per month or $6.50 per hour, conversations on the imminent minimum wage has remained mute, as some chamber members and other members of the business community have been sharing their concerns with the executive director. Reports inside Edge with no word to the contrary, it is expected the effective date is going to be in October. While most chamber members have not expressed any disagreement with the minimum wage or its level, the chamber remains disturbed by the approach taken to introduce the said wage. There has been no sufficient time provided for real dialogue and conversation on the minimum wage and its impact on not just employees but also employers. In the limited discussion on the minimum wage, concerns were articulated on the MSME sector and the bankers in particular, the SME being the smaller businesses. The concern was the ability to afford an increased wage with limited time to adjust, prepare, and even assess impact. The micro-business sector particularly were extremely concerned, and no words of comfort, strategy, or support were forthcoming. The Chamber, for its part, remains concerned that it has had no opportunity to assess potential impact on members and the wider business community, and thus be in a position to offer advice and support to those who will be affected. The issue of relative wages is real and affects the relationship and productivity significantly. Time for consultation and dialogue was curtailed by the approach adopted to introduce and implement. We are seeing a pattern of behavior where the government says that there is constant consultation, and yet the doctors have said there's no consultation, the business people say there's no consultation, the farmers say there's no consultation, and when they go and do things like GPH, halls of justice, CIP, and we ask any questions, they are not provided any answers. We have a government that is working in secrecy. And all they continue to do is to lie to us and give us propaganda. No truths on anything that's taking place in this country. I want to say to this. When we look at where health is today in this country, worst ever. I want to echo the request by everyone here tonight. The minister must go. When we look at the state of security in this country and what's taking place with the commissioner, the deputy commissioner, 3 years of record homicides, and when I look at what just took place in my own constituency and how that situation was handled and the protocols that were put in place where there was no support for the victims. So the mother and the 3 daughters, and one of the daughters was as young as 8 years of age, were left in the house the same night. Nobody took the impact on them into consideration. And so when I speak of protocols, I'm talking what does we do as a state? And when the policemen go in, was a psychiatrist or anyone sent in to evaluate the mental wellness of those persons? It doesn't even happen. It's not even a consideration. And we have 3 ministers of security, the last one being the minister of what? Crime prevention. All 3 of those ministers must go. We have never seen such a failure in our culture between our bananas, our fresh crops, everything else taking place. The Minister of Agriculture must go. We have a Minister of Infrastructure that 4 years has gone by, he can't finish a roundabout. wants to tell you about rain and wants to tell you about all of the things. He said that when he was in our government, we were the ones preventing him from doing it. Look at the number of roads that we were able to develop while we were in government. He is now on his own with his pals, and he can't finish it. We have the situation at HIA Airport. Nobody knows what's going on at HIA Airport. We've never seen the roads in such deplorable condition in this country. The Minister of Infrastructure must go. The cost of living in this country has skyrocketed. $1 cannot buy you 4 loaves of bread anymore. $1 can't take you as far. $1 cannot allow you to make many more phone calls. $1 is getting you less on your internet. Not only is your internet price gone up, but the quality of your internet has gone down. We've seen a substantial increase in the debt of this country, and there's no accountability of it. CIP is a disaster, so the Minister of Finance and the Minister of CIP must go. And here's the problem that we have now. If we fire all of those ministers of government, there is no government. So the only thing that we can ask tonight, and we're going to start moving forward collectively as St. Lucians, that we are going to now raise our voices. So when we say about raising our voice, we cannot remain silent on these things anymore, my people. Are you going to sit by and allow this country to become a country of the poorest of the poor? Cannot do it. So the day is coming where we now are going to have to march collectively together and do exactly what Philip Pierre said. We must push them out. There is no way with what we know after 3 years. There is no way after what we know after 3 years that we can allow this government to remain for another 2 more years. I believe the Prime Minister must prepare now and not allow us to go to another budget and to call the election as soon as possible. We cannot allow them to continue in government. We must get back on track to build a new St. Lucia. We must put a group of young men and women in place who have truly care about this country. There's no more space for comrades. We must defend our democracy. We must stand up for our rights, but we must understand that in protecting the judicial system, in protecting the security of our country, holding public servants accountable every day is how we have democracy. That's how you protect your freedom and your rights. So I'm saying to all of you tonight, enough is enough. How much more do you need to see? How many more lies do you have to see Richard Frederick and Ernest Hilaire and Philip Pierre say to you? How many more? Right now, there is a shortage of vomit in St. Lucia. It's finished. They have so much more vomit to eat, and there's no more. So the only way they can get more is to make all of us vomit. And I don't know about you. I don't want to vomit. I want to stand proud. I want to reiterate the message. United Workers' Party is looking for men and women to join this party. Yes. Become a member of United Workers' Party. We're in the process of announcing our candidates, and it's going to be an exciting time. And if Philip Pierre does not believe that we have our candidates in place, call the election tomorrow. I dare you. Call it tomorrow. And see the United Workers' Party is not ready. And if you believe that the silence that is out there is because people don't genuinely care about this country, call the elections tomorrow. But I can tell you, can tell the Labour Party, this country is fed up with this government. We're fed up with the lies. We're fed up with the mediocrity. We're fed up of being made the poorest of the poor, and we will not stand up for that anymore. Let us move forward. We have a busy couple of weeks coming up. I want everybody to come out and support the United Workers' Party.
Thank you very much, political leader, future Prime Minister. You heard it. Ladies and gentlemen, we had an interesting, long evening of deliberations. And I just want to thank each and every one of you. But before we leave, I just want to celebrate one of our stalwarts who is celebrating his birthday today. And that is Skinny. A round of applause for Skinny. So, ladies and gentlemen, happy birthday to you, Skinny. I promise I won't sing because we don't want any more rain. But ladies and gentlemen, thank you for coming out despite the inclement weather. I want to thank those of you who have been listening to us on live stream. We went past 800 live viewers tonight. And I want to thank you for that. But stay tuned and be a part of the struggle. Let us take the fight to the St Lucia Labour Party. On Thursdays, we have Meet the Opposition in the morning, and at night we have Round Table. But stay tuned and you will hear of the other events that we are going to have.
I just want to say one thing I did not say. Very, very serious. Mr. Martinez is offering the governments of the Caribbean to join him in a class action suit against the banks to recover the money from our countries. When he's invited all the governments to come up, it's to get the evidence to do that. So when you see that the governments don't want to go, it's either that they're arrogant and don't care about our money, or they are part of the problem. Now, I believe that we should write Mr. Martinez and to say to him that if in fact the government does not want to join, the people of St. Lucia will join. And so I'm going to ask my party at its next meeting to approve the beginning of a petition in St. Lucia, that we accumulate as many names as possible to send it to Mr. Martinez and to tell him that we want our money back. And to ask him whether he will pay the legal fees to assist us in going after our money and to make sure our money comes back from China here to St. Lucia. Are you with me? All right.